that day.
Great.
So
Well, I guess we'll get started. I don't know how many people are going to show up today because it's the day before Thanksgiving, so people are probably gone.
yeah.
Okay, let me just make sure I am recording. Yeah, okay. All right, so like I was just saying, for this week, we're going to record and post your presentation. And then we're going to look at our very last type of writing, which is informational reports. And kind of the reason we're doing that is that part of your presentation assignment is, sure, you did your presentation, but then you're supposed to look at two other people's presentations and write an informational report about it. We'll get into all the details about that. Okay, so yeah, what you're going to do, you're going to record your presentation, post it, and we'll go through all the steps on how to do that. And then you're going to, for this week and next week, you're going to watch two other classmates' presentations, take notes, and then complete an informational report about that. And then we're going to do week 14 check-ins, which is everybody's going to make an appointment with me, either in person, on Zoom, whatever, for a time slot where we're going to check in and make sure you're doing okay and that you're going to pass the course. Everyone will pass this course. Okay, so going over the reading. So we're talking about reports this week. And these are different than what we've been doing up till now. Up to now, we've been doing letters, memos, emails, which are fairly short in length, but business reports could be longer. And their purpose is to obviously convey some information, answer some questions, and to solve problems. You can deliver these reports through the usual way. You can attach it to an email, you can make a PDF file out of it, you can do a PowerPoint. Okay, so the reports in general kind of break down into two broad categories. There's informational and analytical. We're just going to focus on informational for this class. So informational reports, they present data, but they don't do any analysis or they don't recommend anything. They just report data, just the facts, man. So that would be appropriate for reports like sales reports, progress reports, some kind of compliance to some government thing reports, where you're just presenting information. You're not making any conclusions. Whereas an analytical report does that, plus it provides some sort of analysis and some sort of conclusion or recommendation. The kind of reports that would be those sort of analytical reports would be feasibility reports, like how much is it going to cost to do this? Does it make sense? Justification reports, I think we should do this thing because of these reasons. So those both require some analysis. Okay, so how do you organize these reports? Just like we talked about with the direct strategy and the indirect strategy, you need to evaluate the audience. Are they going to be receptive to this information, or are they going to be, is it going to be essentially bad news, right? So if you think they'll be receptive to the information, you can just use the direct message strategy where you come right out and say what's going on and then follow it up with the data. If you think they might not be so receptive, then you can use the indirect strategy where you kind of warm them up with the data first and then your topic statement at the end. And there's two writing styles we can use for reports. There's the informal and the formal. So we're going to focus on the informal style, which we've kind of been using all this time for everything else as well. And for informational reports, the informal style is usually what's used. So like I said, that's what we've been doing all along. It's using that conversational tone first person pronouns, shorter sentences, whereas the formal writing style, which is typically used for the analytical style reports, is more objective and sort of has more authority or impartiality. And that's more appropriate for longer research kind of oriented things, more analytical things. Okay, so in an informational report, we would like to organize the information by using headings, as we have already looked at before for other types of writing. And there may be an existing sort of template that your company likes to use for their reports. So you might want to ask about that, or take an example from one that someone else has done in that company. It might have a certain kind of outline that they like to use that's a standard for their look. And then like how are you going to deliver this report? And again, this is kind of up to the organization. How do they usually do it? You can, write your report in Word, but you can export it into a PDF file, which is better for posting online. You could make a PowerPoint slide deck out of it, or you could use some infographics. You could just basically have a picture that you've made a pie chart or something like that. Okay, getting back to the headings, there's a couple of different formats that we can use, infinite number really, but we're just going to talk about 4 types here that are concern themselves with how you organize the data and where the headings would be and how many heading levels that you would use. And I'm not really going to go through that. So generally speaking, there's 2 kinds of headings that we would use, functional and we call talking headings. So functional headings are just very short, 1 or 2 word labels, and they basically came out of your outline. If you made an outline with notes first, and it's just kind of a way to say, this section is about this section is about that, and so on. And then under those functional headings would be talking headings, one tab in, that would just be more, adds more information. So we talk about heading levels. I think you know what we're talking about here. That's where you have, heading level 1 would be those short 1 or 2 word ones. And then we might have sub levels under there. So level 2 would be under a level 1. It's usually indented and probably has a different font or look to it to kind of show you that this is second. So it might be like 1A, for example. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the reading. Now what I'm going to show you is a video that I put together on how you actually record and post your presentation. So first I have to turn on audio from the computer. Okay. So let's watch this guy and see what he has to say.
Welcome to this exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the making of a presentation. I'm going to lead you through the process of using Zoom to record yourself giving your presentation, and then the steps for uploading your recording to the discussion page. Step 1 is to start up Zoom. Now, if you've been using Zoom only in the browser and not the Zoom app installed on your computer, you really should use the app instead. It's much more stable and it has all the Zoom features. The Zoom app is pre-installed on all Cabrillo computer stations. If you're using your own computer, you can download Zoom Workplace for free by going to zoom.us/download and clicking on the appropriate version for your computer, and then running the downloaded file. Once you start Zoom, Your screen should look something like this. Click on the Sign In button. And enter your Cabrillo login as usual. Now your screen should look like this. Click on the New Meeting button and your screen should pop up like this. Make sure you have the right audio and video devices set. And then click on the audio drop down. Select test speaker and microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3. If everything checks out, then go ahead and click the start button. How's your video look? How's the lighting? Remember in Module 11, there's a video on tips to improve your lighting on your videos. Here's what my setup looks like. A good trick is to print out your outline and tape it to the sides of the monitor. That way you're not looking down at your paper to see what to say. If you want to blur your background, you can click on the little arrow by the video and pick blur my background. Or not. At this point, you want to start screen sharing by clicking on the green share button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You may have to hover your mouse over the window for it to show up. Once you click the share button, you see a screen like this, where you have an option on what part of the screen you want to share. Since you're going to be displaying PowerPoint in full screen presentation mode, it sort of does not matter if you pick the entire screen or just the window that has PowerPoint in it. Your whole screen is going to be PowerPoint either way. So let's just pick the entire screen, which is the default, and click on share. Now your screen should look something like this. You should see your screen plus your camera video thumbnail. If you don't like where that thumbnail is, you can drag it around. If you don't see the Zoom dashboard at the top of your screen, just hover over your mouse to the green area and it'll drop down. Now, let's bring up your PowerPoint slides. And we're going to put it into full screen presentation mode by clicking the little presentation icon in the quick start menu. Or you can go to the slideshow menu and say play from start. Okay, now you're ready to start recording. To start recording, hover up to the Zoom dashboard, click on the More icon, and click on Record. Now, depending on what version of Zoom you have or your Zoom account that you have, you may get two options: record to this computer or record to the cloud. Either way, we want you to record to this computer and not the cloud.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Now start with your introduction and get on with your presentation. Pressing the space bar will advance your slides. When you're ready to stop, hover over the Zoom dashboard again and click the More again, and you can say pause or stop recording.
Recording stopped.
There's no need to be nervous. You can stop and start recording as many times as you want for as many times as it takes. When you've stopped recording, you still need to stop sharing, and then you need to end the meeting. Zoom will begin converting your video file. You can find your video file in the Documents/Zoom folder. Find the file with the MP4 extension. Double-click that file and it should begin to play. If everything looks good, go ahead and attach it to the discussion by clicking on the Attach Paperclip icon. Which is right there. And go ahead and find that video file again. Remember, it's the MP4 one. And click Open. And that should attach your video to this reply. Put in the name of your presentation into the reply box and hit the reply button. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, any questions on that? I want to show you a couple of things here that I kind of forgot to mention. One is
That way you're not looking down at your paper to see what
I got
to
a
say.
nice source of natural light there that's in.
If you want to blur your background, you can click on.
So if possible, try to use natural light. Try to have it, facing you. You might need to moderate it with, shutters or curtains or something if it's too bright. If you can't use natural light, then yes, use incandescent light or whatever. But it's not a great idea to try to mix the two. So if you can't use the natural light, you either want to be in a situation where you can completely shut that window or just wait until sundown and then use the whatever lighting you have in the room. The other thing that I wanted to show you is when you're recording, there's a little icon. It's going to be very hard to see, but there's a little, in this little green bar on the Zoom dashboard, there's a little circle with a red dot in here. That's just, I think it blinks the red spot. That tells you you're recording, in case you were wondering about that. Okay, everybody got that? How to do your recording, how to post it? If not, go back and just watch the video. There's a transcription here as well. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, for this week, it's get your PowerPoints, get your outline, get it all together, follow this video on how to do the recording and how to post it. And then for next week's assignment, we are, well, it's this week's assignment, due next week. You're going to watch 2 other presentations. You're going to take notes on them, and you're going to write an informational report, which we're going to go into detail on how you do that. And that's the assignment coming up. So since you have to watch 2 other people, I really hope that you can all do this phase soon, right? So for sure before next Wednesday, so that other people can have a chance to watch at least two more, right? Okay. So I have done this and I have attached my presentation to this discussion. And I guess we should watch that. You haven't had enough of me already?
Hi, I'm Dwayne Strong. I'm a CABT instructor here at Cabrillo College, and today I'm going to share a presentation with you about confused words. Have you ever heard someone say something and think, wait, that isn't the right word, like that's a mute point, or the job has great French benefits? Perhaps you've made the same mistake when speaking or writing. Confused words are words that may sound the same or similar, but they don't mean the same thing. Confusing a word can lead to embarrassing mistakes. In this presentation, I'm going to go over how words get confused, some of the most commonly confused words, explain what the differences in meaning are, and lastly, how you can avoid using confused words. Sometimes people hear a common phrase and think they know what it means, but they've gotten the word or words wrong. It's similar to when people hear a song lyric but misunderstand them. For example, for the longest time, I thought that Fall Out Boy song, Sugar, We're Going Down, was saying, we're going down, down in the merry-go-round. The phrase may be an old chestnut that uses a word that's no longer popular in the modern world. For example, in the saying, that's a moot point. We don't use the word moot often in modern language, meaning a point that's no longer significant or relevant. People will often fill in with a word that they do know, like mute. Another example of this is chomping at the bit, where chomping is an old word for teeth gnashing. This is often changed to chomping, but that doesn't mean exactly the same thing. Often people get the meaning of a phrase wrong and then change the words to make their interpretation make sense. Nipped in the bud is a saying that makes an analogy between pruning your garden and being proactive. But I've heard people say nipped in the butt, which is a totally different analogy. Another situation is when writing, we think phonetically and pick a word that may be a homophone or just sound very similar to another word. Common examples are accept versus accept. To accept is to receive. To accept is to exclude. Then there's gorilla versus gorilla. A gorilla is a primate. A guerrilla is a fighter who's part of a rebellious group that's battling government or some other authority that likes to raid and ambush. Although that word has been recently co-opted to mean anything that takes you by surprise, like guerrilla marketing. And then we have naval versus naval. Your navel is where your umbilical cord used to attach. Naval pertains to the branch of the armed forces that rides on ships. Now let's turn our attention to when you think you're using the correct word, but in the context of your sentence, a different word should be used. These are tricky ones. Some examples are precede versus proceed. Precede is to go before. Proceed means to move ahead, to continue. Lay versus lie. Lay is a verb. That verb needs a direct object noun. You have to lay something, like lay an egg. Lie means to recline, but the tricky part here is that lay is also the past tense of lie. Today you lie in your bed, yesterday you lay on your bed. Then we have affect versus effect. Affect is a verb, meaning to influence something. Effect is usually a noun, meaning the result or impact of something. However, effect can also be a verb that means to produce or to cause to come into being, although that usage is not very common. One way to remember the difference is that affect comes before effect alphabetically, and an action to affect has to occur before you can have the result, an effect, in the same way that A has to come before E. So how do you know when you're using a confused word? The best way is to have another person proofread your writing. You may be unaware that you've been using a word for a long time and would never be able to see that it's confused yourself. Microsoft Word will sometimes flag a confused word, but spell check won't help you since the confused word is still a correctly spelled word. It's just not the correct word. In conclusion, I've gone over some common scenarios and examples of confused words and explained their differences. I hope that you now have some tools to help you avoid using a confused word in your own writing. So go out there and fix your confused words in your writing.
Okay, so that was my example of a presentation. And I can already tell some of you are way beyond what I did. That's great. But that's all you really need to do. That's what I just showed you there. So any questions on recording, posting, viewing presentations in this discussion? Okay. So like I mentioned, we're talking about our last type of writing for the workplace, which is informational reports. And the reason we're talking about it now is that this is part two of the assignment concerning your presentation. So do your presentation, record it, post it. Then you're going to watch two other presentations of your choice. You're going to need to take notes on those, and then you're going to write an informational report for each of the two. So let's talk about how you make an informational report. So like we went over in the reading, you can pretty much divide reports into two categories, informational and analytical. Informational reports present your data, but they don't do any analysis and they don't make any recommendations. It's just telling you what happened or telling you the data. That's it. So the kind of reports that would be informational reports would be like a trip report. If you have to visit, a client or something like that, and you're just writing up, this is what happened, this is what we did, but you're not making any judgment calls. Status reports, this is what I did today, that sort of thing. I will mention that status reports are kind of going out of fashion and are being replaced with online tools that just show your status based on work that you've done and put into the computing system that you're using there. We call those information radiators. So rather than have to have someone ask you for your status is just always there in real time. But I digress. For this report, status report would be fine. A sales report or a progress report or a compliance report, again, all just saying this is what happened or this is the data, no analysis. On the other hand, an analytical report does all that same thing that the informational report does, but then it goes on to provide some sort of analysis or conclusion or a recommendation. And some types of analytical reports would be like a feasibility study, like, does it make sense for us to install this new software? What's it going to cost? What's the benefits? In my opinion, I believe that yes, so that's your analysis, right? Justification reports, same kind of a thing. We did this, and this is why. This is why we think it makes sense. Market research reports, we think people are buying larger pizzas with more toppings, and this is our conclusion, how we think we should change our marketing. So those will all have some conclusion, recommendation, or some form of analysis. And for this class right now, we're only concerning ourselves with the informational report, not the analytical reports, okay? 157, next semester, we get into the analyticals. Okay, so in your information report, you can use basically two styles. There's the formal and the informal style. Informal style is what we're used to using in this class for pretty much everything we've done so far. It uses the conversational tone. And it's appropriate for familiar audiences. So, people in your work organization and or non-controversial topics in fairly short routine reports. Whereas the formal style is used in longer reports, more like research reports. And that style is used to convey some objectivity, authority, impartiality. So informal style, as we know, because we've been doing this, uses a friendly tone, uses first person pronouns, shorter sentences. You could use contractions. We try to use the active voice, and we try to use familiar words. Whereas in the formal style, this uses what you might say more professional, respective language. It uses third person nouns, the researcher, they, them. So you're sort of distancing yourself, right, in the formal style. Longer sentences, we don't really use contractions. Often we use the passive voice. Again, we're sort of distancing ourselves. So we're showing impartiality, right? But we definitely don't use any kind of humor or figures of speech or anything like that. In general, it's just more formal. So again, in this class, we're doing the informational reports with the informal style. We use headings and reports. We talked about this a little bit already. There's functional heading and talking headings. Functional headings are very short labels that are really just sort of an outline. First section is introduction. Second section could be something like discussion, one or two words. And then inside those at level 2, we would have what we call talking headings that are more of a sentence and give more information about what's coming up. You can have more than 2 levels of heading, although for a short informational report, it's probably best to stick to 2. Okay. So this is the second part of the presentation thing where you're going to look at 2 other ones, take notes, and then write this report. Now, like I was mentioning, I've set the due date for this one into next week because, yes, all the people have to record and post their presentations before you can pick 2 to read them, right? So there's going to be a little time lag in there. But you can start doing this whenever you want, as long as there's more than mine sitting out there in the discussion. And what you're going to do is you're going to do it right here in the text box, or you can do it in Word and upload the file. But you're going to do 2 of these, and for each one, you're going to separate them with the level 1 headings, which is just your sort of outline, presentation notes, factual report, and presentation feedback. And then under that first heading, presentation notes, you just put in the notes that you took when you watched the video. And these don't need to be complete sentences or don't worry too much about the writing. This is just like the raw data that you got when you watched the presentation. After that, you're going to have factual report heading. This is where you write just has to be 1 paragraph, which is your informational report. You're going to use your notes and you're going to include all the key information from that presentation. Use all the things we just talked about as far as the conversational style, all those things we just mentioned. Begin with a clear topic sentence that includes the name of the presenter and their topic. Here's my example. Dwayne's presentation focuses on commonly confused words. So something like that as your starting topic sentence. And then you want to follow that topic sentence up with the main points that were discussed. But no analysis in this section, right? This is the informational report. And then under the third heading, presentation feedback. Now this is where you sort of have your analysis, but I want to make it very clear that we didn't do the analysis here in our report. That's what makes it an informational report and not an analytical report. Okay, this is separate. And here you're going to explain how you could apply what you learned from watching that presentation. And you could provide some suggestions on how the presenter could improve their presentations in the future. So you're going to watch write two things up, and they can be all in the same text box here or all in the same Word document, just first one, second one, and then submit them into this assignment. Any questions on that? So don't worry about this now. Worry about getting your presentation recorded and submitted. As I mentioned, you're going to have more time to get this one done because those other presentations need to be there first. So focus on this second. Okay, let's see, it's 10:20. Can we do this before break? I think we could. So here's just a little quiz. It's only got 4 questions, and let's just do it in class. So I'm going to view as student. And let's take this quiz. All right. Reports that present data without analysis or recommendations are, what do we think? Is it informational, analytical, cost benefit, or justification? What do we think? No analysis or recommendations.
Informational.
Yes, information. Thank you. Okay, so here we have some examples of certain reports. Which of the following is most likely to be written as an information report? Would it be a report recommending the installation of a retina scanner? Okay, well, right here I see recommending, and we know that informational reports don't have a recommendation, so that can't be right. How about this one? A report to management with analysis of market trends. So again, I see the word analysis, and we know informational reports don't do any analysis, so that can't be right. How about this one? A government regulatory report to be filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Well, I don't see any analysis or recommendation words in here, so that could be right. Let's look at the last one. A report comparing 3 locations and identifying the best for a new franchise. Well, identifying the best, that's a kind of recommendation, right? Or analysis, so it can't be that one. So I think we've narrowed it down to this one, right? Does everybody agree? Okay, list 5 characteristics of informal style report style. Well, all we gotta do is go back to, did you go back here? Yeah. Oops, not too far, not too far. So if we looked in here for informal style, right? So that was the question. Question was, list 5 characteristics of informal report style. Well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's 6. So pick 5 out of that 6 and put them in there. So I'm just going to go like, well, how about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's take them all. Doesn't matter which ones, so there we go. Okay. And then list 5 characteristics of the formal style. So let's just go back to this lecture. Formal style. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just take these. Copy. Paste. Oh, that one got its bullet dropped. Oh, now it's pretty good. Or whatever. Okay. Oh, got that one right, got that one right. And then those are right, because we just copied them verbatim out of the presentation. Okay, so that's that. Student review. Any questions on any of those things? There's only 4. Okay, we've got 5 more minutes before break. We can get this done. Okay, so another thing we're doing in week 14 is we're doing the check-ins, which means you're going to set up a time with me one-on-one where we're going to go over your current grade, where you're sitting, any missed assignments, how, if you feel okay with that grade, things you could do to improve your grade, all that kind of stuff. And this is a snapshot that I took over the weekend. So if you've done any more work since Sunday night, I won't have it in this, just so you know. So here's all the time slots that are available. Okay, we're already up to Wednesday. So we could do it today in this room 507 if you wanted to after class. Class is going to be a short one today. Or you can, I'll be in the Aptos CTC after class. You can either come into the Aptos CTC or zoom in through the normal thing like you're doing now. And I'll be online there. We can go over the current grade. Thursday's a holiday. Friday, even though campus is closed, we can set up a Zoom link. For all these other times, just message me, through the Canvas message thing, and just tell me what a good day and time is for you between these days and these times, and I'll send you a Zoom meeting link, and then we can meet that way. Or next class meeting. Yeah, I won't be in the Watsonville CTC this week because that's a holiday tomorrow. So that's not an option, but same story as today. Next week, we can either do it in this classroom, 507, after class, or you can zoom in. Any questions on that? Now, for some reason, you just can't set up a time to meet with me, which seems ridiculous since this is pretty much 9 to 7 every single day of the week. But if you, for whatever reason, can't do that, just go ahead and in this assignment text box, just answer these questions and we can have that discussion that way. So that is all I have for this week. If you need help with your presentation, get a hold of me, right? You know where I am. I'm going to be in Aptos the rest of the day today. Or just do a message to me and we can work out a Zoom meeting or whatever it takes. Now, doing your presentation recording on Zoom, over Zoom, is not possible. So can't do that level of interaction. But, I can certainly give you some tips and tricks or whatever, or if you don't remember how to actually do the recording or how to submit it or any of that, I can give you some help there. Or we can do a Zoom meeting, do some stuff. You go off the Zoom meeting, you use the Zoom to do your record, and if there's still problems, you can stop that, come back into the Zoom meeting, and we can do that. Probably the easiest thing would be in person, either in the labs or in room 507. Okay, so short one today. I know everybody's, getting ready to leave on their vacation. Any questions on any of the stuff that we covered today? Okay, so we don't even need to stop for first break. We're just gonna stop here. All right. I'll see you guys during our meetups. Talk to you later.
All right. Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving.